Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this should probably not come as a shock to absolutely anyone, especially considering the fact that Disney has been trying to hide absolutely everything about the new Snow White live action, the Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. I don't even know what it's supposed to really be called at this point, but the live action that's not really live action because all the dwarves are CGI. But anyway, that's beside the point, boys and girls. Well, we knew that a trailer had been released a couple of weeks ago, but it had only been released in theaters. And many people speculated this was because of the fact that Disney didn't want the narrative out there. They put it out there on social media, watching it get ratioed into Oblivion like we saw with the last Snow White trailer, because guess what? Between Rachel Zegler's going, the original series is weird, it's weird, it's weird, and just the absolute abysmal disregard for the original source material out there, of course, that trailer got absolutely ratioed into Oblivion, and fans hate it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, Disney has now finally released that trailer over there on YouTube, and well, I think you all can imagine it's ended exactly the way we expected it. Yes, that trailer has been ratioed absolutely into Oblivion, and guess what? It's exactly what Disney deserves. Because as you can see over here from this wonderful article over at That Park Place from our dear sweet WDW pro himself, Rachel Zegler's Snow White trailer finally releases on YouTube. Dislikes begin to pour upon Disney, and yes, they are, boys and girls. Pro wrote this article about an hour after the trailer came out. We're looking at it almost 5 hours after the trailer came out, and guess what? The ratio has only gotten worse. This is a movie that has gone through massive amounts of reshoot. The budget has to be at minimum $500 million on this movie already, and there is no snowball's chance in hell of this movie inking out even the slightest amount of profit. This thing is going to turn into a disastrous dumpster fire. It's all Disney's fault, and it's exactly what they deserve, and that's exactly what we're about to talk about here, boys and girls. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below out there. Were you cautiously optimistic about the Snow White movie initially? Did you very much decide to go completely and totally against it after all of the stupid comments that Rachel Zegler made out there? Or is this something you think is actually going to end up doing well in the box office, or do you believe, like the majority of us out there, that this thing is going to turn into a disastrous dumpster fire? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below, and if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. So from thatparkplace.com and our dear sweet WDW Pro, after nearly 2 weeks, the Walt Disney Company has decided to finally put the Snow White live action remake trailer on YouTube. The company had kept the trailer exclusive to showings before Wicked and Moana 2 without comment as to why it was hidden away everywhere else. Well, we all know why. The truth is almost certainly a very coordinated positive PR campaign to protect Moana 2 that seems to have been quite successful. The preview trailer for Snow White was released earlier in 2024 and was a colossal failure for Disney's Alan Bergman. The VP who oversees the film side of the company was likely quite displeased to see the trailer become one of the most disliked movies previews in the history of cinema. I think it was, at the time, it was the most disliked of all Disney trailers of all time. And that's just absolutely hilarious. Saying, hey, that's what you get for hiring an activist little psychopath out there who wants to crap all over the original. Oh, color us shock there. It didn't pan out. It was well earned. Rachel Zegler, the star who played Snow White, has been part of the controversy after controversy, whether it be calling out the prior story, the prince in the story, as a stalker, or claiming the original film is dated, or weighing in on the Middle Eastern politics in crude and obtuse ways. Zegler has been anything but princess-like, and who can forget the preemptively declaring that she would not be bleaching her skin for the role. Truly, Zegler has been an anthem for any kind of cinematic success. Not to bring in the fact that all of her wonderful comments after the election, yeah, that didn't exactly go over very well either, and of course, Disney had to force her to publicly apologize as soon as it started making headlines, because hey, guess what? Disney now knows picking sides with the majority of the country out there doesn't work out very well for their box office, and it certainly isn't going to work out very well for the Snow White box office either, with Rachel Zegler starring in it, and it certainly hasn't worked out very well for the trailers either. But Moana 2 releasing last week, and Disney desperate to get the new trailer out into the public sphere without significant controversy, a strategy seems to have been hatched that has proven fairly adept thus far. Disney elected to largely keep Snow White hidden from the public. No YouTube video was released, and no audience feedback was possible. Disney simultaneously kept the Moana 2 reviews embargoed until 2 hours before the film released, and I honestly didn't know that. And at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things, it's really not all that surprising, because I mean, literally, if you look over here on Rotten Tomatoes score, it's got a 64% score from the critics, which honestly we all disregard most of their opinions anyway, but the audiences are loving it, and this movie I still think is going to make $1 billion despite hiding the review embargo. I think most people are going to end up enjoying this because, hey, guess what? It's a kids movie, and maybe, just maybe, it wasn't written for the Hollywood critics. I know, strange concept, huh? As a result, two potentially damaging narratives were unable to take hold. First, Disney didn't have to defend Snow White as Wicked soared at the box office, a scenario that could have dampened Moana enthusiasm. And second, holding Moana reviews until the film released meant that no Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny story could happen. And if you don't remember that one, they literally released the reviews like a month earlier when it were premiered at the Cannes Festival. Dude, everybody hated that movie. Everybody hated that movie. And guess what? The audience did too, and it lost Kathleen Kennedy, Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm a whole lot of money as well, exactly as they deserved. People went to see Moana 2 often because they had no idea how bad the film is. Today it is teetering around a rotten rating on the Rotten Tomatoes score, a website that is already crafted in such a way to protect big budget films from such a stinky and stinging label. But now with both missions accomplished for Mickey, Disney has finally released the Snow White trailer to the public. The results have not been pretty. No, not even close. In only 1 hour, Snow White has already been ratioed by the dislikes votes on YouTube. If it repeats the reaction seen from the preview trailer, it could be a mountainous negative reaction. Whether or not that will materialize into a cinematic flop has yet to be seen. It will. However, protecting Moana 2 from Snow White seems to have worked out wonderfully for Disney CEO Bob Iger after all. And really, what more could they ask for? The Snow White trailer, of course, is rather awful. Ugly, disconcerting CGI, AI dwarfs actually seem to make audience members feel a sense of disgust. The evil queen is more beautiful than the princess. Snow White not only saves the prince in the trailer, but she also appears to be leading a socialist revolution against the monarchy. It may be one of the last byproducts of a super woke Hollywood era that is already seen as a stain and tremendous failure in the history of cinema. My, oh my, how things have changed. And speaking of how things have changed, well, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? Just for fun, we're going to give you a refresh. Right in the middle of us recording this video, right here, we're going to give you a little refresh because we're not going to watch the trailer because we know how the copyright stuff is on YouTube and all of that kind of stuff out there. But look at this right here. Released 5 hours ago with 341,427 views, 7.8 thousand upvotes. Well, that's not too bad, except that it currently has 40,000 downvotes, boys and girls, in 5 hours. What did Pro say it had within the first hour? Right there, does it even give us an actual number out there? 4.7 thousand dislikes at the time that they wrote their stuff. And now we see it sitting at 40,000 dislikes. This thing could end up, if it wasn't for the fact that this thing will probably get viewed less times than the last one, this thing would get absolutely ratioed into oblivion, probably worse than what the first one did. This is why Disney hid this away. This is why Disney released this in the theaters before they released it on social media, because they knew exactly what was going to happen. Disney has already got this gone as a foregone conclusion that this movie is going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. They are just trying to lessen the pain as much as they possibly can, but it's too late. It doesn't matter. The damage has been done. Rachel Zegler and her activist nonsense, plus the fact that you're completely, totally disrespecting the source material from the original movie that made the Walt Disney Company the success it is, because if you don't remember, the Walt Disney Company was facing bankruptcy before this movie ended up being a smash hit at the box office back in the day. So they're taking what literally saved the Walt Disney Company and adding it as one more nail in the coffin of their woke era that has turned into nothing more than a disastrous dumpster fire. But of course, what do the fans have to think about all of this? I got the feeling this movie is going to have more comments on the YouTube than tickets sold. I'll give Disney some credit. They're brave enough to leave the comments section open again. Rachel Zegler, Snow White is not going to be saved by the prince. The prince, good, because I'm here for your stepmother. I'll give you one for that. I want the queen to win in this version. Gal Gadot, magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest one on the wall? Mirror, you are, your majesty. Cut to the credits. The comment section has spoken. We all want the evil queen to win. Rachel Zegler, literal box office poison. Disney, we're thinking about putting you in a Marvel movie. The people need some kindness. Ultra Rachel Zegler, may you never know peace. And it's just going to go on and on and on and on. And this is exactly what they deserve, to get ratioed into oblivion on this trailer for a movie that's going to be a disastrous dumpster fire at the box office. It's probably going to end up costing them $500 million in losses, and guess what? It's exactly what they deserve. As Pro wraps it up over here, one thing seems certain though: none of the cringe has changed for Snow White, and at this point, Disney is far better served attempting to throw all their marketing at Lilo and Stitch. That one still has Oana. Snow White just has, oh, the horror. and there's no end in sight for the plight of this film until it finally makes its way through the box office and off to onto a forgotten cubby hole in streaming. And he is absolutely right. This movie is going to turn into an absolute disastrous dumpster fire for the Walt Disney Company. It will probably end up being pulled out of theaters faster than the Marvels, if that's even possible. You remember the Marvels? It was literally in theaters for about, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 weeks at the most before they even stopped reporting on the box office. This is going to end up the exact same way. This thing is going to be a disastrous dumpster fire. It is going to lose the company hundreds of millions of dollars, if not downright $500 million. At this point, the only thing that is not a foregone conclusion is exactly how much money it will lose at the box office. Will this be worse than the Marvels, or will it actually, surprisingly enough, do better? At this point, I think there's a good chance it could actually end up doing worse than the Marvels. And guess what? It's exactly what Disney deserves. They decided to bet. They decided to get down with this activist cult out there. They decided to have all of these producers and all these other crazy people out there, decided to tell them what was the new hot trendy thing that this woke thing was going to take on, that everybody was going to love, the diversity, inclusion, and equity. And oh, they're just a bunch of evil ists and phobes and da-da-da-da-da. We're going to own them chuds out there with all of this wonderful stuff because we're on the right side of history. And the majority of people will actually wake up and see our side of things, and they'll come to see us, and they'll know that we're the heroes of this story, unlike all those evil villains, those bigots, those ists, and those phobes out there. Well, guess what? It turns out, just like we've seen throughout history and time immemorial, as always, again, when you violate the truth, when you violate the basic good of the world out there, you lose every single time, because surprisingly enough, common sense actually still exists with the majority of the culture out there. And they have rejected this evil ideology that is straight from the bowels of hell. And Snow White will actually end up being one of the final, hopefully, one of the final gasps and the screaming from these activists in the cult, because this thing has turned into an absolute abysmal dumpster fire. And guess what? You did it to yourselves. The audience has been and always will be smarter than you. We know what we want. At the end of the day, the customer is always right. You have decided that the customer was wrong about absolutely everything. You decided to force your agenda down everyone's throat, and everyone is throwing it back up and regurgitating it right in your face. And this Snow White trailer getting ratioed into oblivion with just in 5 hours of it coming out is just the latest sweet, beautiful cherry on top of the sundae. It is candy piter, boys and girls, because Bob Iger, you bet on the wrong horse. You went against your audiences, you went against your fans, and everything that made the Walt Disney Company a success, and now you are suffering the consequences. Enjoy losing billions of dollars on this next disastrous dumpster fire. Bye-bye, Snow White.